Welcome, everyone. Before we even jump into things today, do us a massive favor and hit that like button and subscribe to the show.
Yes, please do. It really helps us out.
It does. It lets us keep bringing you these deep dives.
Mhm.
And today's deep dive is, well, it's a big one. We are unpacking a brand new, ultra long, and just incredibly comprehensive ebook. It's called Winston Churchill, Manly Leadership, Courage, and Eloquence by Conrad Riker.
And it is a fascinating, incisive read.
Really is. And I'll just say right off the bat, if today's conversation hooks you, you can go buy this ebook right now on Amazon Kindle and Google Play Books.
Highly recommend checking it out if the topic resonates with you.
Exactly. So our mission today is to unpack Riker's blueprint here, because this book is written very specifically for men navigating the modern world, particularly those of you who align with men's rights advocacy or men in the red-pilled manosphere.
Right, the target demographic is very clear.
Yeah, and for that audience, this is essentially a manifesto. Riker wants to help you understand the history of our institutions before they were, in his words, captured by feminists and Marxists.
But before we get into the weeds of those historical claims, we really need to establish the tone for today.
Good call.
Because this book contains highly charged, controversial political arguments about feminism, Marxism, and modern society. So to be explicitly clear, as hosts, we are absolutely not endorsing or taking sides on these viewpoints.
Right, no side taking here.
We're just acting as impartial guides. Our job is just to dissect the arguments Riker has laid out, because frankly, whether you agree with him or not, the way he constructs this worldview is fascinating.
It really is. And the core hook that he uses to pull you in is this idea that if you feel alienated, you aren't crazy. Men are not broken. Society is.
That's his central thesis.
Yeah. He argues that modern institutions actively punish traditional masculinity. And he offers Winston Churchill not just as some dusky historical figure, but as the ultimate unapologetic archetype of male strength.
And he starts building that argument by looking at the very foundation of how a man is forged. He draws this massive contrast between what he calls the iron frame of Churchill's era and today's cult of victimhood.
The cult of victimhood.
Right. So to illustrate the iron frame, Riker looks at Churchill's actual youth. He details how a young Churchill was routinely beaten with canes at boarding school.
Which sounds brutal to modern ears.
Oh, totally. And it gets crazier. At age 24, Churchill was captured by the Boers in South Africa. He literally escapes a prison in Pretoria and walks 300 miles through hostile enemy territory.
300 miles? That is, how does a 24-year-old even survive that?
With no map and no weapon. According to the accounts Riker cites, he survived by drinking rainwater and eating raw eggs he found along the way.
Wow.
Yeah, so Riker's underlying point here is that true male resilience is forged in extreme danger and hardship, not comfort.
So how does he contrast that with today? Because obviously we don't send kids to get caned or captured in war zones anymore.
Well, he completely rejects the modern approach.
Mm-hmm.
He argues we are handing out participation trophies for collapse.
For choice for collapse.
Right. He believes modern upbringing basically coddles men. And he makes some very specific, very pointed historical contrasts to prove it.
Love what?
So he looks at how Churchill handled failure. In 1922, Churchill lost his election and was completely exiled from politics.
A total career collapse.
Exactly. But Riker notes that Churchill didn't blame the voting system or societal unfairness. He just went home, started writing, made a bunch of money, and stoically planned his next move.
Okay, and who does he compare that to?
He draws a direct line to modern politicians, specifically bringing up Kamala Harris's 2020 presidential campaign.
Okay.
Riker claims that when her campaign collapsed before the first primary vote, she blames sexism and racism rather than taking stoic ownership of the failure.
So he's looking at accountability.
Yes, and he applies it to culture too, not just politics. He brings up Simone Biles.
The gymnast.
Right. When she withdrew from the Olympics, citing mental health, society widely celebrated her. Riker starkly contrasts that with Churchill, saying Churchill didn't take a mental health day when London was getting bombed. He flew to France to stare directly into the face of war.
So bringing this back to you listening, Riker's really asking you to consider if therapy culture and what he calls organized weakness have just completely replaced resilience.
Exactly.
Which is a heavy question. And if he thinks modern culture is punishing this natural instinct to endure, how does he think that plays out for men right now in the workforce?
Well, that transitions right into his arguments on evolutionary biology. Riker asserts that toxic masculinity is entirely a myth.
A myth.
No social weapon, basically. He introduces this concept of the double bind.
Let's unpack that double bind. What exactly is the trap he's talking about?
Society demands that men be the protectors and providers, right? Do the dangerous work. But the moment men display the assertiveness or aggression needed to actually do those things, society labels those exact traits as toxic or oppressive.
And he actually brings the data to back this up, right?
Heavy data. He cites the 2023 U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics showing men make up 93% of workplace fatalities in dangerous jobs.
93%. So men are still the ones doing the mining, the deep sea welding, the firefighting.
Exactly. Society relies on that male sacrifice. But then he pairs that with a Harvard study showing 68% of male college students feel emasculated by modern campus culture.
So they're expected to do the dirty work, but punished for the identity that gets it done.
That's his argument. And he relies on evolutionary psychology to explain why this is disastrous. He cites David Buss to argue that male competitiveness and female nurturing are biological facts, not social constructs.
Which is a highly debated topic in sociology right now.
Oh, incredibly devoted. But Riker says these are evolutionary drives, and he brings up James Damore, the software engineer, fired for circulating a memo citing these exact biological realities about sex differences.
And this leads to what I thought was one of the most provocative claims in the whole book. He connects all of this biology and stoicism to Andrew Tate.
He really goes there.
He does. He claims that Tate's core message to young men, be rich, be strong, protect your family, is actually pure Churchillian ethos.
The massive comparison.
And Riker argues that the left doesn't hate Tate because he's dangerous. He says they hate Tate because he exposes their hypocrisy regarding that double bind we just talked about.
Right. Tate calls out the contradiction of shaming men for being masculine, but then demanding masculinity the second a crisis hits.
So if that double bind is happening to individuals, how does Riker say this affects our massive macro structures, like governments or the military?
Well, this is where Riker claims the rot has really set in. He argues Western institutions have been systematically captured by feminist and Marxist ideologies.
The feminization of power, he calls it.
Yes. We've replaced the Churchillian model of command with inclusive dialogue seminars run by HR departments.
And the examples he pulls for this are just startling.
They really paint a picture. He points out that the U.S. military banned the word man from recruitment ads, replacing it with warfighter.
Right.
He talks about the New Zealand Army sidelining combat drills for emotional resilience modules. And the starkest one, he notes the Pentagon is holding sensitivity seminars while China is literally building artificial islands and missile silos.
So an obsession with feelings over actual survival. But does he have science to back up how people actually want to be led in a crisis?
He does. He cites a study from Nature Human Behavior showing that in high-pressure simulations, like intense disaster responses, men naturally assume leadership roles.
Because they prioritize rapid action over consensus.
Exactly. Nobody wants a trauma-informed leader or a gender-balanced committee when the building is on fire.
You want a captain who gives orders.
Just like Churchill during the Blitz.
Which flows perfectly into his chapter on the war against memory. Because if Churchill is the ultimate crisis leader, Riker says there's a deliberate effort right now to erase him and other builders of the West.
The historical rewriting he documents here is intense.
Yeah, break down the hypocrisy he points out regarding the statues.
So during the BLM protests, Churchill's statue in Parliament Square had to be boarded up because it was spray painted with the word racist. Schools have canceled essay contests about it.
Because he's problematic now.
Right. But Riker contrasts this with Karl Marx. Marx's grave is untouched. Marxist reading groups freely plaster Lenin's face on university flyers.
So the man who saved the West is defaced, while architects of ideologies that led to gulags are celebrated.
Yes. And Riker says this isn't an accident. He ties it straight to the Frankfurt School.
The critical theorists.
Right. They predicted that to control the future, you don't use armed revolution. You capture the institutions and demonize the strong men who built the society.
It's demoralization by design.
And Riker takes a really hard line here. He argues that feminism and modern progressivism are luxuries.
Luxuries built on masculine achievement.
Exactly. You can only have a diversity seminar because traditional men built the steam engine, the electrical grid, the internet.
You can't debate theory if you're freezing to death in a pre-industrial winter.
Precisely his point.
So society is essentially biting the hand that built it. Now, assuming his premise is correct, what is his solution? For the guys listening to this, what is the call to action?
He calls it the return of the warrior. And his solution is unapologetic action.
No compromise.
None. And he uses this incredible anecdote about Churchill on D-Day. A 69-year-old Winston Churchill literally tried to board the HMS Belfast to join the naval bombardment.
At 69 years old.
He had to be physically restrained by allies so he wouldn't go get himself killed. And Riker contrasts that physical courage with the fact that 0 current G7 leaders have ever seen combat.
0.
Yeah.
That is a wild statistic.
We're led by bureaucrats, not warriors.
But what about burnout? Modern guys are exhausted. Does Riker address the whole ego depletion theory? The idea that willpower drains like a battery?
He completely dismantles it. He rejects modern burnout culture entirely.
Because Churchill definitely wasn't taking mental health days.
Not at all. Churchill drank brandy, smoked giant cigars, worked 20-hour days during a global war, and wrote 10 million words in his lifetime.
10 million words.
Riker argues Churchill used his vices and stress as fuel. He didn't process his trauma. He willed himself to victory.
Willpower as a fire, not a battery. The more fuel you add, the hotter it gets.
Exactly.
So, synthesizing all this, what is his final message to men?
Stop apologizing. Stop journaling in a culture that weaponizes your feelings. Embrace hierarchy, discipline, and duty. Speak plainly and act decisively.
That incredibly intense manifesto.
It leaves you with so much to unpack.
It really does. Which brings us to a final provocative thought for you to mull over. If Riker is right, if soft times and captured institutions have trained the warrior out of modern men, what happens when the next truly existential global crisis hits?
That is the big question.
Will the systems Riker criticizes just instantly collapse back into traditional masculine hierarchies out of pure survival instinct? Or has the iron frame been lost for good?
It's something we might find out sooner than we think.
Well, that is all the time we have today. If you found these arguments fascinating, and if you're in that target demographic, you absolutely will. You need to read the full manifesto.
Highly recommend looking at his actual data in the text.
Go buy the ebook right now. Winston Churchill. Manly Leadership, Courage, and Eloquence by Conrad Riker. Available on Amazon Kindle and Google Playbooks.
And you can follow the author directly on Substack for more of his essays. His handle is @ConradEinreicher.
Thank you all for joining this deep dive. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the show before you leave, and we'll catch you on the next one.